As you can see here, I'm just using the cap of my watercolour tubes and an HB pencil to draw circles in. You can draw them all different sizes, and if you've got a stencil, even better. And I've just ordered a stencil on Amazon for circles because I just love this technique. I'm applying some masking fluid to some of these circles here. Again, you don't have to worry about the masking fluid. You could either paint round these circles when we paint wet and wet, or you can use white gouache later. So I'm just applying this there very carefully with a colour shaper, which has got a rubber tip, and it's very easy to remove the masking fluid. So I'm going to let the masking fluid dry naturally and start painting the foreground. Before I do, I've got a little story to tell you, a bit of backstory. I was just going to do two simple sort of paintings here. The one on the right, I haven't actually finished yet, but it's going to be an autumnal scene, you know, sort of painting these lovely contrasting light leaves against the dark background. And once I finish that painting, it will be available exclusively to my Patreon members. More details about the membership can be found in the description below. But I just got so into this painting on the left using this bokeh technique that I just had to really share it with you and go into a lot more depth than I would do. So here I'm actually painting wet in wet, some yellow mixed with that lovely phthalo green light, but you could use turquoise or cerulean mixed with the yellow. And I've actually just purchased this new watercolour box. It's got 24 colours in there, which are absolutely gorgeous, and I'll list the colours in the description below. They are semi-moist, and I've never used them like this before, so I thought I'd treat myself. So I'm just mixing in here, damp into damp, some of the burnt sienna and alizarin crimson with my size 6 brush. And now I'm painting in damp into damp some of the forest green, a touch of the ivory black to paint some of the darker grasses in with a pinch of Viridian. If you don't have these colours, you could just use burnt umber and maybe a Prussian blue. I'm swiping out now with my plastic card to create some lighter grasses as well. Make sure that the shine is just about to leave the paper, otherwise it will be either too dry if the shine is left, or the paint will just run back into where you just swiped off. So do practice this technique if you haven't done it before. And now I'm going to paint the mushrooms. I've just wet the surface of this little mushroom here on the left, and I'm painting some yellow, then some burnt sienna, wet in wet, trying to keep that yellow from coming through as well, and just adding a little bit of alizarin crimson here. You could use a bit of burnt umber if you don't have that, or a little bit of ultramarine to your burnt sienna. So there's lots of alternatives there. So I'm going to continue on doing the same to the other two mushrooms. So the painting has dried, and I'm just glazing a thin wash of this very limey green over the top there using the yellow and the phthalo light green. And it's such a pretty colour that I'm just applying some of that phthalo light green there to create some lighter grasses as well. So I'm letting that dry off. While it's drying off, I'm just wetting the background to create this bokeh technique. And I'm first of all applying wet into wet with my size 10 brush, some yellow, and then the limey green next to it. So there's lots of light green, isn't there, to the left hand side of this painting. So pretty much following the painting, except obviously I've cropped half of it. Dropping in some orange here, yellow mixed with red. And, you know, just to create some fun, sort of beautiful light colours. It's already got that sort of effect of the bokeh technique there. This is a little bit more orange with a touch of burnt sienna, and just burnt sienna on its own, and a little bit of alizarin crimson with the burnt sienna. And now I'm dropping in a little bit of limey sort of mid-green. You could use Viridian and yellow. It'll give you a lovely bright colour. And I'm dropping in wet into wet some of the burnt sienna and Alizarin crimson, but you could use burnt umber. And you could also add a little bit of ultramarine or black to this brown as well. I'm painting in some of the tree trunks here with some of the burnt umber here and a little touch of black, damp into damp, so it bleeds out a bit. If it bleeds out too much, wait a bit longer and make your paint creamier. And I'm just dropping in now some red as well with a touch of brown, just to create some really warm colours in this background. And I'm just lifting up here top middle to create some more light where the sunlight is streaming through. So now it's time to allow your painting to dry. And once your painting is dry, remove the masking fluid if you have applied it in the foreground and start working on your mushrooms. I'm working sort of softening the masking fluid line here, just so it doesn't stand out so much. So what I'm doing now is I'm working wet on dry with my size 6 brush, just painting the dark at the sort of bottom part of the mushroom here. Don't worry too much about the masking fluid marks. You can paint round them, or you can add white wet on dry towards the end of the painting. I'm just diluting now towards the top of the mushroom, so this is a lighter area here. I'm using burnt sienna mixed with some alizarin crimson. You could drop in a little bit of black to make it darker. Wet on dry here, painting the stalk as well. So once you finish painting your mushrooms, which really brings the painting to life, it's time to dry your painting. And once your painting is dry, you can add a few more darker grasses, if you like, to the foreground. And what I'm doing now is removing these masking fluid circles that I painted at the beginning with some paper towel. And this is a stencil brush. You could use an old synthetic brush or a hog hair brush as well. And what I'm doing is working in a circular motion with clean water. Make sure you keep sort of swishing that brush into water to make sure it's clean each time. And I'm sort of working and pressing hard and in a circular motion to remove the paint to create this sort of lovely soft circle, as you can see there. So where it might be dark brown, it'll be a soft dark brown colour. Where it's yellow, it'll be a soft yellow, and it creates these lovely effects that you want for that bokeh effect as well. So I love doing this. I could have actually sort of completed the whole background doing this technique, but you kind of want to leave some areas of wet in wet painting. So just go by your instincts. Try to vary the size of the little circles as well. And if you have a stencil, a circle stencil, you might want to lay it down and do this technique as well. You don't have to use the stencil brush then. You could actually use a sponge to lift off. So as I said, I've got my stencil on order, so you'll be seeing some more of these with using a plastic stencil as well, because they're so effective, create such atmosphere, and you can use the lifting off technique on some of the mushrooms there to create light. Another bokeh technique you can use is white gouache or white watercolour paint. And what I'm doing here is I'm painting a circle freehand, but again, if you have a stencil, I think it would be easier. And I'm just lifting off some of that white with my paper towel, so it creates a little bit of light on there. But you could also dilute that white gouache, that white paint, to create sort of softer whites as well, so it's quite transparent, allows the underpainting to come through. I've allowed my painting to dry just to see if I need to do any more, and I decided to paint some lighter green grasses in front of the stalks to sort of really bury those mushrooms to make them look like they're in the ground there. And I'm lifting off a few more bokeh effects because I couldn't resist actually, just to create some lovely atmospheric effects. And I'm using some of the white gouache to paint on top of the mushrooms, wet on dry with my size 6 brush to create some a little sparkly light details there. And I thought it'd be quite nice to paint some details wet on dry onto those stalks as well. Time to allow the painting to dry, just to again see if I need to do any more. I thought just a bit more shadow here using some ultramarine and burnt sienna mix just on that area there on the mushroom. I've just lifted off a little bit with my paper towel as well, went overboard with the shadow, but it really creates a sort of a 3D look as they curve around. A few more last minute little circles here, lifting off with my stencil brush, but I think I will leave my painting there for now. So here's the finished painting. I've cropped off the foreground. I felt there was too much there. So that's the lovely thing about watercolour painting, is you can do a little bit of cropping. But I feel so inspired. I'm going to do more of these. So thank you so much again for Jeden from the Patreon membership for inspiring me and getting me to investigate how to use this bokeh technique in watercolour painting to create these amazing atmospheric effects. If you have any questions about this tutorial, please put them in the comments section below. And if you'd like to see more videos like this, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And for longer, more in-depth tutorials, why not check out my Patreon membership? Details about the membership can be found in the description below. Thanks for watching. Happy painting. Bye for now.